Hi, hello and welcome back. So in the last video you saw me talking about typing on a path and wrapping text around images using paths and our text tool. There is another time that you might see this in a magazine. Let me just show you on the front cover of a magazine here. On the front cover of Vogue magazine here, you can see that the main image's head is going to go in front of the Vogue text, whereas on this one, the text goes in front of Elon's face. Now, it's entirely up to you how you do it. It tends to be more common to see it going behind the person's head, but you can certainly go in front of that person's head. It's entirely up to you. I find that when we do it like this, by going behind the head, it creates a little bit more depth and a bit more visual interest in your image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in my cover image. Now, obviously, I didn't take this image. I found it off the internet, but it's the kind of thing that you're going to want to be doing on, for example, a music magazine. Here, we've broken convention and we don't have direct address. The artist isn't looking directly at us, but we can break with conventions if we think that it is justified. Just don't break all of the conventions, otherwise it's not going to look like a magazine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this image and I'm going to write my cover lines down this side. I'm going to put my splash along the bottom, but the first thing I'm going to have to do is insert my masthead. So in order to create my masthead, I'm just going to select my text tool and click on the top of the page, and I'm going to write Masthead, because this is another edition of Masthead magazine. Now you'll notice that my choice of colour is a bit bad, because not only does it overlap with the top of his head, but it's a very similar colour. So what could I do? Well, one thing that happens really often in magazines, not necessarily with the masthead, but certainly in double page spread articles, is that when you are choosing your colour, instead of coming into your colour palette here, you could actually go into the main image and select one of the colours. Now I love this red colour of his jacket, so I'm going to steal that for the text at the top of the page. And when I hit OK, we can see it stands out beautifully now. Now we could leave it there with the masthead in front of his hair, and it absolutely would conform to conventions, but I want to have a little play with this technique that we can see on Vogue magazine by having it go behind his head. Now there's loads of different ways that you can do this. I've seen it done where someone will intricately cut out all of this hair and then overlay the hair on top of the masthead. I've also seen people rasterize the masthead text layer and go in with an eraser tool and erase out all the bits of the letter that would go behind the hair. And both of those are absolutely valid. The problem is, if I decide later on in the day to bump this image 2 or 3 frames down, or to the left, or to the right, then I need to go back and I need to do all of that cutting out all over again from scratch. The way that I'm going to show you to do it with layer masks is going to make your life much, much easier. So before I get started, I'll quickly save that as my front cover. So if anything goes wrong, I can always revert to this save. And what I'm also going to do is click, drag and drop onto new layer my background image. Why am I doing that? The reason for that is what I want to do is put an identical image over the top. And if I just drop the opacity ever so slightly, you'll see I can see where my text is behind it. I'm going to zoom in, and the idea is that I'm essentially going to cut out from this image, which is on the top on this layer 1 copy, so that I can see the masthead on the second layer below clearly through it. Now you could, for example, take my eraser tool, which is over here on the left hand side, eraser tool, and start doing exactly that, and you'll see I've now cut out these bits, and there we go, very, very quickly. Put the opacity back up, and you can see that would work absolutely fine. But like I said, if I came in later and decided that I wanted to move this guy slightly over to the left, I would have to create my masthead all over again and go back through and cut the whole thing out. So what is the layer mask way of doing it? Well, it's pretty straightforward. All we do is we select our layer and we click on this layer, add layer mask here. Now you'll see I've got an extra white square here. So we've got the original image and then the white square. The white square is the layer mask. And the brilliant thing about layer masks is we just use black and white and a standard brush tool. So if I take my brush tool and I click on white as my foreground color and you see me draw, you'll see nothing happens. If I switch it to black and I draw, you'll see that it actually works like an eraser. What's great is, as I'm going around chopping things out, if I make a mistake, I can just flip back to the white brush and I can paint it back in. And that is a big difference between using the eraser tool and using a layer mask tool. And it's actually exactly the same process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my marquee tool here, and I'm going to take a brush, making sure I'm in the right color. I'm going to cut all of this out. Now, the reason I've used a marquee tool is because, as we know, we can only affect things inside of a selection, and it allows me to work a lot quicker there. So just take my brush tool, quickly, quick and dirty, just cut that out. And then I'm going to hold down the Alt key and zoom in, reduce the size of my brush. I'm using the square bracket tools for that. And also, I'm going to make the edge slightly harder so I don't get quite so soft an edge on the hair. And I'm just going to come along his hairline. Now remember, if I make a mistake and I chop too much into the letters and show over his hair, all I need to do is flip it back round and paint it back out again. Now I've got a gap there, flip it round, paint it back out again. This is so much easier than trying to use the eraser tool and hitting undo about every 30 seconds. So I'll just quickly paint this back in here. And again, where you get slightly fuzzy hair, it might help to soften the hardness on the brush, just to blend it ever so slightly, make it a little less obvious. But you want to try and stay away, especially around hair, which is a nightmare to Photoshop. You want to try and stay away from using too soft a brush, because it will be really obvious that you have Photoshopped it there. Right, the last bit I'm going to zoom in really close for. Make my brush really small using the square brackets. And let's just tidy this bit up here. There we go. Lovely. So remember, what we've done is we've gone on this top layer. And if I turn everything else off, including the background, you'll see then what we've done is we have, let's turn the opacity back up so you can see. We've taken this layer and we've essentially created a layer mask that cuts out this top area here, which allows us to see the masthead through it. And then we're filling in the background with the original image in the background again. And very quickly you can see how we can use a layer mask to create what's called interleaved text. And interleaved text is absolutely brilliant, because what you can do is take any image, take any text tool, take any color, duplicate your layers, knock your opacity down ever so slightly, and create your layer mask. Make sure you're clicked on the layer mask, and zooming in, we can, with brush tool, take all of the text that we want to see and cut it out of the layer mask. And come down the side of the tree like that. And all of the text that we don't want to see, oops, a daisy. All the text that we don't want to see will stay hidden. So hopefully that's given you some great ideas of how you can create interleaved text using layer masks in your magazines. Have fun. I'll see you in the next video.